purpose prevents him from going there in public, out loud. I think even in private he can't conceive of Gaza being wiped off the map, and in Marcus's words, they have nothing to offer the world anyway. But unless you are prepared to say that out loud, then you end up having to pretend that you don't know what...
Have you ever watched someone get asked the same simple question over and over again and somehow still never answer it? That's exactly what you're about to see. This exchange quickly turns into a fascinating battle between direct questioning and relentless deflection. And the longer it goes on, the more revealing it becomes. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In today's discussion, a caller repeatedly steps in to defend Benjamin Netanyahu's position. But instead of directly engaging with the question being asked, he continually shifts the conversation somewhere else. Every time he's challenged on Netanyahu's own words, the focus suddenly moves to a completely different subject, creating a debate that's as much about avoiding the question as it is about the issue itself. As the conversation unfolds, you'll notice a clear pattern emerge. The host keeps bringing the discussion back to one central point, while the caller repeatedly changes direction rather than addressing it head-on. Whether you agree with either side or not, it's an exchange that raises important questions about political accountability, public debate, and what happens when difficult questions go unanswered. Stay with me until the end because I'll break down exactly what stood out to me, why this conversation became so intense, and what I think it ultimately reveals.
What you and many others don't seem to understand is that it's very easy for the people to rise up against Hamas. This sounds a little bit like what's his chops talking about slavery, doesn't it? I've forgotten his name, Kim Kardashian's husband, who was talking about how he couldn't believe that slaves put up with being slaves, and because if he was there at the time, he'd have risen up against Kanye, isn't it? He'd have risen up against them. So, of course, if they wanted to get rid of Hamas, they could do it easily. But they don't, because they want all this to happen. Therefore, writes Marcus, and I read out texts on this rather than tweets because they have phone numbers on them, which means they're checkable, they're real people. And Marcus writes, we should just the easiest way is just to wipe Gaza off the map. They have nothing to offer the world anyway. And I think that is what is underpinning the belief of right-wing commentators who talk about razing Gaza to the ground or making it rubble, and very carefully avoid talking about the human cost that would involve. Would it somehow become a more honest conversation in which independent observers would find it easier to hold a position if Netanyahu expanded upon what he means when I say, I have sworn to destroy Hamas, nothing will stop us, and returned, for example, to what he was prepared to say 40 years ago, according to the journalist Max Hastings, when he was perfectly prepared to say that we will get a chance to wipe out the Arabs completely. His words. I took a slightly strange call earlier this week from someone who objected to the use of the word Arabs, but I'm quoting, well, not only is it a technically accurate word, but I'm quoting Benjamin Netanyahu. In the next war, if we do it right, we'll have a chance to get all the Arabs out. We can clear the West Bank, sort out Jerusalem. I mean, what else is motivating him when he says nothing will stop us? Graham's in Borehamwood. Graham, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James. I think the one word that seems to be missing from all of these conversations about the terrible situation there is the word surrender. The needless killing of people can simply stop today if Hamas simply surrendered. And there's precedent for that because the PLO were fighting in Jordan and realised they were against insurmountable odds. They surrendered and left the country, and then peace was restored.
With respect, Graham, the conversation we're having today is about the scenario absent surrender. It's about what Netanyahu means when he says nothing will stop us, and the question of why there is this reluctance, although to their credit, many of my contributors today are shrugging off that reluctance, a reluctance to admit that Israel is perfectly prepared to kill every civilian in Gaza.
I think, James, I think that Netanyahu's political future is very limited. He's not going to last long after this.
And that'll be little comfort to anybody burying their child next week.
Well, yes, but the point is they don't have to bury their child if Hamas put the white flag up. Simple as that.
Yes, but as I've just reminded you respectfully, the conversation we're having today is about what Netanyahu is doing, not what Hamas should be doing. And what Netanyahu is doing is clearly, to my mind, embarking upon a policy built upon the belief that every single human being in Gaza deserves to die.
I don't know whether that's right or wrong, but the point of the message...
Challenge it then.
The point should be that as soon as Hamas...
But you can't have a conversation about what Netanyahu is doing by telling me what you think Hamas should be doing.
Well,
it's not a conversation. Here's a question. What is Netanyahu... Graham, the question is, what is Netanyahu doing? Your answer can't be, let me tell you what Hamas should be doing. Do you see that?
No, I don't.
Let me say it again. Let me say it again.
Let me say it again. By surrendering.
Let me say it again.
He will no longer have power.
Let me say it again.
If they surrender, the Israelis will chuck him out. Simple as that.
Let me say it again. The question, what is Netanyahu doing, does not admit the answer, let me tell you what Hamas should be doing. You must see that.
I don't.
Well, would you mind trying a bit harder?
I see that the cause of the problem...
Would you mind trying a tiny bit harder?
Would
you mind trying a tiny bit harder?
I'm just trying as hard as I can.
Okay, then I'll say it once more. The question is, what is Benjamin Netanyahu doing, a man who has talked in the past of having a chance to get all the Arabs out? What is he doing in the next war? If we do it right, we'll have a chance to get all the Arabs out. So again, respectfully, that rather removes the precedent of previous negotiations or surrenders from the table, because he's already talking in his own mind about the next war. We get all the Arabs out. The question of what is his end game, what is his purpose, you cannot answer that question by telling me, here's a complete counterfactual about what I think Hamas should be doing. And what I think...
The end game for Netanyahu is probably a prison cell if he gets convicted for corruption.
Yeah, that's another helpful distraction, but I mean, a rather transparent one.
Well, that's your view, not mine.
No, it's not. No, talking about Netanyahu being in a prison cell is a distraction from the question of what his current military policy is. That's not a view. That's not a view. That's a statement of fact. It's not a view.
Well, his position will become irrelevant at the moment Hamas surrender.
So what is his position? What is the position? What is the position that would become irrelevant?
He will no longer have power if Hamas surrenders.
No, you said his position would become irrelevant. What is his position?
Yeah. His position now, it doesn't matter.
But what is it, though?
As soon as they surrender,
what is it?
Then the war stops and the Israeli people will throw him out of power.
What is the position?
I have no idea what his position is. I can't know what's in his mind.
So you don't know what the words "nothing will stop us" mean?
Well, words that were said 20, 30 years ago...
No, this was yesterday.
Probably were... I'm sure he is not interested in genocide. The Israeli people...
What does nothing will stop us mean, then? What does it mean? What is his position? He said to the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, in Jerusalem yesterday, not 20 years ago. And also, again, respectfully, if you thought that saying he said that 20 years ago somehow diffused the words, then you must be acknowledging the power of the words when you suddenly discover that they were actually said yesterday. So what do you think they mean?
I don't know what they mean.
Yes, you do.
I don't know what... I don't.
You do, Graham. Of course you do. Well, let's go through them. Let's go through them one by one. Let's go through them one by one. What does the word "nothing"? What does the word "nothing" mean?
It's irrelevant once the fighting stops.
What does the word "nothing" mean?
Because he'll no longer have any power. He'll be a footnote in history.
That's all very interesting, but what does the word "nothing" mean?
I'm sorry, I don't see where you're going with that.
Well, it's a fairly straightforward attempt to help you understand what the words "nothing will stop us" mean, because you just said you didn't.
Well, he wants to see Hamas eradicated.
Talking about the word, what does the word "nothing" mean?
Frankly, I don't think, from a military point of view, you'll ever eradicate Hamas.
What does the word "nothing" mean?
Not the point. The point is...
I'm afraid it is the point. It's what he said yesterday, and it's his policy that you phoned in to discuss.
People are needlessly being slaughtered.
Well, I agree with that. So what does the phrase "nothing will stop us" mean? It means there is no level of...
to stop it is for Hamas to surrender.
Okay, so we're back...
argument.
But no, it's not the end of...
The government changes, and they all can get together, and Gaza can be rebuilt.
Graham, you can talk all day, and I'm going to keep you on the line until you tell me what you think "nothing will stop us" means.
I don't know what you...
Yes, you do.
I can't say what...
Of course you can.
...is in his mind.
So you can conjure up a confident prediction of what would happen in Israel in the event of Hamas surrendering.
Hamas.
Graham, you're letting yourself down. What does "nothing will stop us" mean?
He means he wants to eradicate Hamas.
No, he doesn't. What does "nothing will stop us" mean?
It means he'll do what it takes to eradicate Hamas.
So what would stop him from continuing that course? How many deaths?
The surrender of Hamas would stop it.
No, nothing will stop us.
The surrender of Hamas would stop it.
Graham, you know what these words mean, Graham? It means
surrender of Hamas will stop it.
It means he's
tonight.
prepared to kill 2 million civilians.
No, it does not. Don't be stupid.
Well, so you know what it doesn't. You know what it doesn't mean,
James. You're being absolutely ridiculous.
So what does it mean then?
It means he wants to eradicate Hamas.
No, what does nothing will stop us mean? Because you know what it doesn't mean.
He will use all the military power he has to eradicate Hamas.
Yes, and the civilians who are caught up in the crossfire?
If they're being used by Hamas as human shields, they are a terrible consequence of war, which Hamas can stop by surrendering.
So there we are, all 2 million of them.
No.
So how many?
You're being just fantastic.
Well, thank you, but how many? How many, Graham? How many, Graham? How many?
There is no point playing numbers games.
But you just rejected 2 million.
No, I'm not rejecting. I'm not putting any numbers on it. It's a military situation.
How many is too many?
Be stopped by Hamas surrendering. Why won't you agree that if Hamas surrender, the war stops?
Because I'm not psychic. And I'm talking about Benjamin Netanyahu's current policy, which is nothing will stop us. And you can't even say what those 4 words mean because
I'm sorry,
the words would turn the words would a hypothetical situation, Graham. You're here to talk about.
You're not that clever.
Oh, I am. You're here to talk about Hamas surrendering, and you're criticising me for discussing a hypothetical situation.
Well, it's not a hypothetical situation for Hamas to surrender.
Okay,
I'll give you
Graham.
an example. Arafat surrendered in Jordan, and they all went out of Jordan, and there was peace.
And Netanyahu said, in the next war, if we do it right, we'll have a chance to get all the Arabs out. So it was just an exercise in mowing the lawn, I think, is the phrase that's often used.
Well,
just before you go, and I'll ask you this again respectfully, why do you find it so hard to answer that question, nothing will stop? Is it because you do know the answer and you don't want to say it out loud?
I don't agree. I don't know the answer, and you don't know the answer as well. You're just throwing these words up in the air, and frankly, they're an incitement.
Well, I'm asking you what they mean, that's all.
No, I've told you what they mean. They mean the eradication of Hamas.
And
and
what does nothing mean?
I've told you. I mean, I feel like talking to the wall.
Well, I know how you feel. But nothing will stop us means there is absolutely no limit upon how much civilian death we will accommodate in pursuit of what you describe as the eradication of Hamas. Why do you find that so hard to admit?
Because I don't agree with you. I don't think it means that at all.
So what does it mean then?
Eradication of Hamas.
So what does
Hamas can
all right,
stop
Graham.
it tonight.
Okay, Graham. I mean, down with hypotheticals and numbers games. Nothing will stop us. There are 2 million people in Gaza, and there are 20, 30,000 Hamas terrorists, say 50,000 if you prefer. How many of the 2 million must die in pursuit of the eradication of the 50,000? So the reason I read out those grim texts earlier is because I don't want to accuse Graham of lacking courage, because I think he's a better person in some ways than Marcus, who writes about the easiest way is just to wipe Gaza off the map. They have nothing to offer the world anyway. Because Graham's moral compass prevents him from going there in public, out loud. I think even in private he can't conceive of Gaza being wiped off the map, and in Marcus's words, they have nothing to offer the world anyway. But unless you are prepared to say that out loud, then you end up having to pretend that you don't know
What really stands out about this conversation isn't just the disagreement, it's how difficult it becomes for the caller to answer one direct question. Instead of addressing Netanyahu's own words, the discussion keeps circling back to what Hamas should or shouldn't do. Whether you agree with that position or not, it never actually answers the question that was being asked. That's what made James O'Brien's approach so effective. He didn't allow the conversation to drift into a completely different debate. He kept bringing it back to the same point, asking for a clear explanation of what the phrase, "nothing will stop us," actually means. And remarkably, after all that back and forth, a straightforward answer never really came. What also caught my attention was the contradiction. Graham insisted he couldn't possibly know what was going on in Netanyahu's mind. Yet only moments earlier, he spoke with complete confidence about what would happen to Israeli politics if Hamas surrendered. So on one hand, he claimed certainty when it suited his argument, but on the other, uncertainty when confronted with Netanyahu's own public statements. That's a difficult inconsistency to ignore. For me, that's the biggest takeaway from this entire exchange. If you're going to defend a political leader's words or actions, you also have to be willing to explain what those words mean and engage with the hard questions that follow. Simply redirecting the conversation doesn't make those questions disappear. It just leaves them unanswered. Of course, this is an incredibly emotional and deeply contested issue, and people will have very different perspectives on it. But public debate is strongest when difficult questions are addressed directly instead of avoided. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think the caller answered James O'Brien's central question, or do you think he spent the entire conversation avoiding it? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.